What is up, guys? So today we're going to be doing a video on this fine unit in front of us. This is a 2015 11-inch MacBook Air. Now I just picked this up off eBay a few days ago. I wanted to go ahead and make a video on it now that I've gotten it all set up. So I have wanted one of these for several years, an 11-inch MacBook Air specifically, just because it was really cool to have a Mac in such a tiny form factor, and it wasn't something that Apple had done before like 2012. However, these things have always remained quite expensive, especially even on the used market, and so I never ended up picking one up. Now I did have a 12-inch MacBook for about a year or so, but that was something else entirely. And even though that computer could be considered just a better version of this, I still wanted to pick one of these up. And so anyways, I was talking with my friends a couple of weeks ago, or actually about a week ago now. I was just talking about it casually because we were talking about MacBooks, and anyways, one of my friends linked me to this. It was listed as a 2015 11-inch MacBook Air, of course, but it was also listed as one with having only 4 gigs of RAM, which, you know, that was the standard configuration at the time. An 8GB RAM model was available as a BTO option, but not a lot of people went for that, understandably. And it also mentioned that it did not include an SSD. Now, this was being sold by a secure e-waste solution on eBay, and so I figured that was pretty normal for it to not have an SSD. And so I was like, okay, you know what? It was listed for $180. I offered $125 initially. They sent me back $150, and I went ahead and accepted that offer. So anyways, I anticipated on having to purchase an SSD for this computer. However, a lot of you may remember that I upgraded the SSD in the board in my 2013 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro over there, and I kind of conveniently forgot about this at the time of purchasing the MacBook, but I remembered very shortly after that, wait, I have a spare SSD out of that computer laying around. I wasn't sure about this completely at the time of purchase, like I said, but I went ahead and confirmed that all of the PCIe SSDs used in the, I believe, the 2013 to 15 MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs, and laptops like that, they're all interchangeable. They all work with each other, and so that was great. Even though that the aftermarket SSDs on eBay were only an extra $40-50, it was nice because I had that 256 gig that I took out of that machine just lying around. So anyways, I went ahead and received the machine 2 days ago. I threw the SSD in, and she is working great. So the one thing that what actually surprised me, though, and I'll just go ahead and say it at the moment, is that when I threw macOS on it, booted it up, looked at the specs, I actually found out that this machine, it does have 8 gigabytes of RAM, not 4. And so that makes this, I think, a really good deal that I picked up a 2015 MacBook Air, which of course, you know, has the Broadwell chips in it, that also has 8 gigs of RAM for $150 out the door. So I think that was a really good deal. For the physical condition, I mean, we just have this one fairly nasty dent on the front corner here. Obviously, it was dropped just like that. I assumed that this machine was used in a business environment because it did have a sticker right here, which I removed, of course. You can kind of see the remnants of it there. And so I figured, you know, it was either in a business or an education environment, so it kind of saw a little bit more extreme use. Other than this big dent, though, there's really not a ton going on. You can also kind of see, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but there are some blemishes back here. But again, nothing else that's too serious. Everything else about it, it's in pretty darn decent shape, actually. So yeah, you can kind of see there's a small crinkle in the aluminum right here. It must have been dropped on this edge too, but it doesn't really affect the functionality or anything. So of course, this being a 2015, we have all of our quote-unquote modern ports for the time. We had a MagSafe 2, USB 2, headphone, and then on this side we had a Thunderbolt 2 port and another USB port. So that's a far cry from any of the ports we get on the newer MacBooks, but yeah, not bad for this thing. Go ahead and open it up here. You can see that, just look how small this thing is, guys. It's kind of trippy for me to see a Mac that is so tiny. But again, same story on the inside, not a ton of damage. You can of course just see that dent. It's a little bit more noticeable, but oh well, it is what it is. As far as the keyboard and stuff goes, I went ahead and wiped this entire computer down with alcohol. It was a little bit dirty in the beginning, but as you can see now, other than still some light dirt remaining and some, you know, decently worn keys here, it's in pretty darn good shape. So anyways, let me go ahead and boot it up. Of course, the battery works, which is beneficial. Go ahead and boot this bad boy up. Alright, and there we go. So I went ahead and set it all up yesterday, just got some programs on it and stuff, and yeah, here we are. So, of course, things are going to open now, but let me go ahead and bump up the brightness just a little bit, and I'll go ahead and show you this thing. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom the screen in a little bit here. We'll take a look. Of course, this is an 11-inch screen. I believe the resolution is 1366 by 768. It's still kind of trippy for me seeing macOS on this type of screen. And I also kind of forgot that the MacBook Airs are actually 16 by 9 aspect ratio, so that's a little different too. Because I'm used to using MacBook Pros, which have always been 16 by 10. Anyways, if we go into the About This Mac, you can see pretty clearly there that it is an early 2015. We have a 1.6 gigahertz Core i5. Of course, it is a Broadwell generation, so that's cool. We have 8 gigs of RAM, like I mentioned, so that actually takes this thing from being only for basic use to actually being somewhat usable while doing other things. And then, of course, we do have that 256 gig SSD that I took out of my MacBook Pro in here. So, with that in mind, of course, this thing is actually pretty decent. I haven't used it all that much yet just because I've been busy with work and stuff, but I'm pretty darn happy with it. I mean, I went ahead and put just a couple of programs on it, Google Chrome and then the Office suite. So let's go ahead and take a look at the battery too, because that was something else that I was curious about. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Had to re-download it real quick. But as you can see, you know, it has seen some use. Of course, this machine was manufactured in very late 2015, so it's about 4 years old. See, the battery is holding steady at 87% with 352 charge cycles. Manufactured in October of 2015. Not terrible. I mean, these things pretty much sip power, so it's fairly easy to make it by with a battery that hasn't seen, you know, the best of use or whatnot. So I think that's totally fine, especially for, you know, what I intend on using this thing for. It should still last quite a few hours on charge. So yeah, so with that said, I'll go ahead and shut her down. That's about all I have to say at the moment. Got a pretty killer deal on this 11-inch MacBook Air. So with that said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.